I know we always kind of start a little bit after the mark, but yeah, lovely. Welcome, Robbie. Hi again.
Hello.
I'm enjoying these. Let's start it off with the prayer.
Beautiful. Okay, so tuning in, inviting you to close your eyes, especially if you're watching this as a recording and taking a moment to feel your heart, feel your body, feel the present moment and what's alive for you right here, right now. And at this time, we ask and invite the presence of the Creator here with us now, the power, presence, insight, and healing of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, and the souls and higher selves of Meredith and myself, as well as everyone and anyone who is tuning into this, either right now or in the future, so that we can receive the messages from the Most High, the Creator, as well as the messages that our higher selves and souls have for us to speak to our mind and heart in a good way. We ask that the power of love be here, the power of joy, and the power and teachings of truth, honesty, courage, bravery, respect, humility, and wisdom, and the medicine that they carry for us. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for bringing good understanding, knowledge, insight, and wisdom, truth into this space. All right.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this week we're diving into bravery. And yeah, why don't you just start a little bit and to introduce us to the teachings that you've studied on bravery?
Yeah. Well, I've really been enjoying talking about these. These are the
Yeah, me
really
too.
the core principles and teachings that have guided my life and guided my relationships and have taught me so much about being a human and how to live in a loving way. And so this is the fourth out of this particular series. So we started with truth and then honesty and courage. And now we're moving into bravery. And I was recently speaking with my elder, the Night Wolf, who is the one who shared these teachings with me originally. And we were talking about how the teachings play into each other. And we were talking about truth and honesty and courage and bravery specifically, and how these teachings kind of pair together, and how, you know, the pairing of truth and honesty are interesting because a lot of times when you hear those, it's like, oh, aren't those kind of the same thing? And as we discussed and discovered in our other calls, truth is this, it's like a noun, it's like a presence, it's this energy, it's a vibration of consciousness and God. And then honesty is about action. And honesty
Mhm.
is about how to embody that quality of truth in our
Mhm.
relationships, in our life, and how we live it. And so, similarly, with courage and bravery, courage is this energy of being courageous, this capacity to face our fears, and this principle that helps us to look within and face our fears.
Mhm.
And bravery is then the action, the outward action, the living of it in our lives. And it's a core teaching. It's a pith core teaching
Yeah.
of being human, of being spiritual, because when we live life as a human every day, there's challenges, there's hardships, and we're coming up against our own resistance, our own control, our fears. And bravery is about action, it's about living life. And despite the fears, despite the insecurities. And so
Mhm.
bravery is a teaching of fearlessness.
Mhm.
And one of the things I like about this idea of fearlessness is that, of course, there's this ultimate bravery, this ultimate fearlessness where the masters, you could say, are fearless because they've transcended the fear of death, the fear of
Mhm.
pain, the fear of suffering. They're completely at one with God, so there's nothing to fear. So, us as humans on the path still, we're not there yet. We're working our way to that place. We may have moments of it. However, we still have fears. We're still human. So, fearlessness is not about the absence of fear. It's about having less and less fear. So, being fearless, less fear. So,
Yes.
it's a fun little play on words. And bravery is this amazing teaching that helps us release our fear through action, which is the best way to overcome it.
Okay.
So, yeah, in that, what comes up for you when
Yeah,
you feel
well,
that?
the only thing that I'm wondering is the distinction between, again, self-seeking motivation, like
Mm.
charging in a direction with recklessness or some kind of brutality or something like that. We would say, isn't that brave? To be able to just, run amok and do what we want and be that way. What would you say about what I just described in the context of bravery and this teaching?
Yeah, that is a really good question. And that's where the first teaching of truth is always the center or like the reference point for the
Okay.
teachings. So, for example, there's no bravery in invading another country and murdering people.
Mm.
Like that's not in these teachings wouldn't be considered an act of bravery. Um, Bravery might be to stand in truth and not do that. For example, I'm
Right.
not going like I'd rather die than go to war and kill another.
Right.
Or bravery might be defending your family from someone who is threatening them from a place of truth, from a place of I don't want to cause harm to another human, but I need to, take care of my community or my family. Um, so it's always in alignment with truth. It's always in reference to God's truth, to the truth
Yeah.
of our core essence.
Right. And I would encourage people who haven't watched the first few in this series to go back and revisit that, to tune into truth, which is God's truth, and that alignment, the righteousness. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to have accountability. And I truly believe our hearts know. Um, when was the last time you remember being brave?
That's a great question. Let's see. Um, yeah, I was recently, so a recent act of bravery is so in a decision that I made where my elder, the same one I was speaking to this week, he's going through some health challenges and he's in his elder years. So, in those challenges and in his time on the earth, we don't know how long he has. And in that, there's this desire in me to see him and spend time with him. He lives down in the States and it's not easy to go see him. It takes time and resources and energy. And my plan was to go see him in May because he's doing some ceremony at that time and he invited me to be part of it. So I was going to go and visit him in Michigan in May. And I had a dream. And in the dream, I was walking and I was walking with my beloved. And we were walking and talking about connecting with him and having him do a ceremony to bless our union and our
Mm,
relationship. And as I was walking, it was like the voice of God or the presence of spirit was there. And it gave me this lightning bolt of realization that his time on earth is limited.
mm.
And obviously, everyone's time is limited. Some it's more, you know, more
Yeah.
present than others. And in this dream, it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I had the realization that he's not always going to be here.
Yeah.
And that one day I won't be able to visit him and I won't be able to pick up the phone and call him. And in the moment of that dream, I fell to my knees in the dream, physically, and I began to cry. And tears started streaming down my face. And it was very intense. It was like the grief opened up fully, and I was fully crying, fully in it. And it actually was so intense that it woke me from the dream.
Mm,
And when I woke up in bed, it was still like the dream continued, and I continued to cry and grieve in bed for I don't know how long. It felt like at least 10 or 15 minutes. And my face was completely soaked. My pillow was wet. There was so many tears. And in a way, it was very beautiful
yeah.
to feel that depth of emotion. And it was also this moment of like a wake up call. And that was the truth is like, I don't know how long he has. He may have years, he may have months, who knows? Time will tell. And in that moment, it was like, okay, that's the truth. Now, what am I going to do about it? And will I take this brave step to spend the money that, you know, that it will take to do the trip and make the steps and take time out of a busy schedule to do this
Yeah.
so that I can spend this precious time with him. And then I chose yes. So I'm in the process right now of making that possible and doing that and planning the trip and figuring all the details out.
Hmm.
So that for me was a brave step. It's one thing to face courageously the fear of losing him,
Right.
to face the grief. It's another thing to say, I'm going to do this, you know?
Yeah. I think that's really important, just knowing a little bit about your story and the loss of your dad and this
Mhm.
opportunity with your beloved to go and get the blessing through this mentor that you've had and how sacred that is. And, I mean, courage, when we talk about courage in that context, our hearts know what is right. And courage is something that really convicts us in a way. And then that bravery feels like a natural extension once we know what's right. Just like truth and honesty. Honesty can be subjective, but there is a divine truth, like the divine courage. And it's noble then. It's not a simple energy or
Mhm.
a basic energy when we do that. And it really, I think bravery, we know that the choice that we're making is based on that deeper thing. And bravery is such an empowering feeling. It really is. It's an activation that really we feel right about. And so it carries us. It's energizing but not manic. It's um yeah, I we know when we hit bravery, don't we? It's like
Mhm.
we have to do that thing because it's right. And
Mhm.
so we gain that momentum.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
it's
often
really
like we know, like in the act of bravery, there's a knowing that it's not an easy thing to do.
yeah,
Like if it's easy, it doesn't really take bravery because it's like, oh, it's easy,
yeah,
like, you know.
yeah,
And it's all relative to what we're challenged by.
yeah. In
So,
this scenario, is it the logistics of the trip and the time and the resources, the energy, or is it the emotions with your history? What do you think with losing your dad and that? Is it
mm,
a combination? Is it equal parts? What do you think?
yeah, it's like it's on the surface. It's the mind says, "Oh, it's the logistics," you know? That's what
Right.
my mind was saying, like, "Oh, I'll go in May, it makes more sense, it's more rational, I'll be more settled in my new home, and then I can." And so the mind says that, but when you asked that question, I got chills and got
Mm.
goosebumps because I was like, "No, I know that it's the emotion, that it's
Yeah,
the vulnerability of seeing him and facing that." And in the decision already, a lot of emotions have arisen for me,
yeah,
and memories of my dad passing and how he has been like a father figure in my life. And so it's more that it's the fear of facing that truth
yeah,
and facing mortality and facing the vulnerability of loving somebody and knowing that all relationships are temporary because
yeah,
whether they end or someone dies, like it's always going to end some way or another. And it's vulnerable to love someone for that reason.
yeah,
And that takes bravery to be vulnerable and to acknowledge the love we have and how hard it can be to then lose that person.
right. I think we were touching on in a previous episode about the fear of death and that being, was it the courage one? The ultimate overcoming is that fear of death. I think it's beautiful that you've shared the tears and that
Mm.
emotion so transparently. I think as I guess as masculines in the world, there are only a few things that we're allowed to, or masculines are allowed to cry about, right? And I feel like your example there, sharing so freely your emotion and tuning in with that, I think that's a really nice permission and example for others to see. How do you feel about the things that the masculine deals with? in
Mm,
the work that you do with men, and what is brave for the masculines to explore and what isn't. Let's maybe talk about
mm.
those kind of things for the masculines and feminines.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like for me, I find that as men, one of the greatest acts of bravery that we can practice in our modern world is, and in ancient cultures too, is surrender and learning the medicine of surrender, to let go of the need to control and the
Mhm,
need to dominate, and to allow ourselves to be in surrender to love and surrender to truth and surrender to the creator. And in that way, we no longer need to try to control people, places, things, and situations. And that takes tremendous bravery for men and women, really. It's not easy for women to surrender either.
no,
As humans, we're kind of built to try to control.
yeah.
And, in that way, that's why a lot of men also, they practice first physical surrender. So an example is like a cold plunge or an ice bath.
Hmm.
So that's a way to physically surrender, where it's like, okay, I'm going to put myself in a physical space where I have to surrender to this discomfort, or fasting, or excess, like really intense workouts. And then there's also a mental surrender in that. And on a deeper level, there's the surrender to the power of life and the power of God and the power of the feminine within us and around us. That the feminine energy lives within us as men, and it has tremendous power. It's the way I relate to that feminine power is it's the power of life, really, that flows through us, and it is much stronger than us as our human egos. We could say,
Hmm.
and so surrender comes in many forms, and surrender in its essence is also letting go, which in tears it's an act of surrender. It's letting go to our emotions, letting go to our feelings, and allowing ourselves to feel.
Mhm.
And that can be uncomfortable. A lot of men have been taught to close their hearts to feelings.
Yeah.
So a lot of females have been taught to close their voice, and a lot of men have been taught to close their hearts. So the deep surrender is the surrender that opens our heart, because surrendering is an opening. It's a process of opening. So if you think of like holding on to something, to surrender and let it go is to loosen your grip. So tension in the body is holding on and resisting and trying to control,
Mhm.
and surrender is loosening and releasing and letting go of that tension, letting
I
go of
had
that.
a I had a friend tell me it's not about doing this and dropping in, it's like this.
Mm. Hmm.
And you can just feel the difference, right? Because in my line of work, there's a lot of jargon out there, and it's all about surrender and letting go, and it can get really woo woo. And
Hmm.
because we feel something on our hearts, and it's counterintuitive to pretend that thing doesn't exist or that
Hmm.
connection isn't there. But if we refrain from this and more this, it is that loosening of the grip, and there's no tensile strength required to just let go like that. So yeah, it's a nice little
Hmm.
distinction. I do
Yeah.
think that both, the feminine, when we feel into coming into receptivity to receive our beloved, our masculine, we have to surrender all of that headstrong independence. Nobody roast me, but because we are capable, we're incredibly capable. Feminines, I mean, we birth babies. We are intuitive. We channel things from beyond the veil. The high priestess is like this far from the veil with the intuition and all of that, and yet that same thing holds true, that the bravest thing we can do is trust.
Hmm.
I think Justin Pierce and what is his wife's name again?
London.
London.
Yeah.
They talk about, oh, what was it? You know their work. What was I getting at there? Oh, the trust and the love, that
Mm.
the masculine wants to be trusted and the feminine wants to be loved. And so what was just coming to me, which I've articulated in the past, is that when the feminine is coming into receptivity, there's this internal trust fall and not needing to push things forward, not needing to activate, not needing to have the logic, reason, stability, the things we can grab onto, but just trust and be present in that moment. Is that something you as a man relate to as well? How would you word as that within you, or is it not that process within you?
Yeah, like for me, I feel that for sure, like that quality, definitely. And the way that I learned surrender is really surrendering our ego, like our ego preferences or our ego control. Our Because the ego is always wanting to control,
Yeah.
and loosening that grip. So it's this surrender of our mind and our ego to consciousness, surrendering to a higher power, God, love, truth, which is very scary. It's like the
Mm,
scariest thing for the ego. Like we talked about this on a previous call, I think maybe Courage, I don't remember, around how that is like death.
right.
So surrender feels to the ego, when you surrender, it feels like death on a
Right.
certain level, which is why it's so scary. And for men, we need to surrender our ego. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speaking from men. I think women too. However,
Hmm.
from the male vantage point, it's like surrendering our ego to God, so that we can be guided in our path and purpose by a higher power and by wisdom, rather than by our ego desires
Yeah.
and what our ego wants. And there can be a correlation between the two. Like, the ego can have a desire that is what's called a soul desire or a God-led desire,
Mm,
and the ego can have a conditioned desire. So, for example, like your desire to create this YouTube channel to share these messages, to bring your medicine and healing to the world, is a soul desire, as I understand it, as I perceive
mm.
it. Whereas
Thank
some
you.
people may have this desire to be famous on YouTube because they were told that that's a good way to make money and that's a good
Mm,
way to, you know, feel good about themselves, or they have this glamorized idea that is an outside conditioning that they just
mm,
learned about because someone sold them a YouTube course or something like that,
mm,
Um, so there can always be a desire. Like some people have a desire for money and wealth because their soul honestly wants that experience of being
mhm,
human. And some people want money because they just see all the movies and all the stuff and they say, I want money because I think it'll give
mm.
me something I want. And so it's this discernment within ourselves to really find what is our true soul desire and what's our ego desire,
Right.
and surrendering to the soul desires and letting go of our ego
I
desire.
absolutely love that you're speaking on this level. I relate to it so much, and I love that I feel you channeled the thing about my YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Before I started the YouTube channel, it was probably, I don't know, just about a year before I actually started the channel that I started getting these downloads that my the divine was going to be moving me into the public eye. And I was like, heck no. I was like, no, because anytime that I'd ever done that in my life, it felt like I got backlash. It felt like I got unwanted attention. It felt like there were things that just weren't my idea of fun. And I remember writing a letter to a dear friend and saying, I'm needing to tap into bravery because something's coming. I know it's happening. And I said to him, like, you don't know me as someone who isn't brave, but in the way that I feel this energy moving, it's a brave energy because it's counterintuitive for what I've experienced in the world. And if the divine is going to use me, I'm going to have that road opened by the hand of the divine, because there are some things I won't tolerate, that I won't interact with, and those things can't be part of the experience if I'm going to step into that divine work. And it unfolded so organically, and I remember saying a commitment prayer to the service of the divine. And at the time it was so ironic because I had purchased a house with my husband at the time, and the deed on the house, it was an Anglican church plot, and it said eternally entrusted to the service of the divine right in the deed. And so, when I saw that in the deed, it was like, okay, here we go. Bravery became then carrying out that courageous acknowledgement, and my free will, I had to say yes to it, but the action of the follow through and that yes was the bravery on my part to align with the courageous opportunity that I was being given. I don't think we're given things that we have to say yes to. We're given opportunities, and I don't feel there's judgment if we decline or wait for it to feel right to us. I think that's when it works, is when it's aligned. And so being curious about what that would require to be that full yes. What do you think about bravery as far as it being something that we get to have a say over with
Mm.
free will and connection to source that way with courage and bravery?
Yeah, for me, in the surrender, like there's a yes in that surrender, surrendering to a higher vision or purpose or power. And I appreciate what you said when you said commitment, because I've also found there's a direct relationship between bravery and decisiveness.
Mhm.
And decisiveness is also this energy of commitment.
Right.
That because often when we have fear and doubt, we like to keep a backdoor option open.
Excellent point.
You know,
Yeah.
especially relationships.
Yes, that's
There's
the
a lot.
going all in energy, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Ah, very
So
nice.
it's like often a pattern, especially in our modern world, it's an unfortunate pattern where people will hold a backdoor option. So they might have
Mm,
a friendship that's kind of a friendship, but it's also like a potential mate if
mm,
things didn't work out. Or they always have this idea of like, oh, if things don't work out, I'll like do that thing I always wanted to do. Or, there's this kind of there's this what if, or this backdoor option if the relationship fell apart. And there's almost part of them that's preparing for that.
right.
And that will manifest that. It will degrade the relationship because you can feel when someone's not fully in.
Mhm.
And it's also like sometimes that's our soul talking to us like, hey, this relationship is here as a karmic lesson. And there's a reason you can't be 100% in, because it's not for you to be 100% in. You're going to
Right.
learn and then it's going to fall apart and you're going to move on with your life. So you're not, don't get married kind of thing or have kids with this person because it's temporary. And then that said, we can have that in any moment of life. And so the decisiveness is there's a story about that I like to share in Bravery, which is around burning the ships, and this story of this these it's kind of a funny story to tell because these teachings, I mean, I'm very much connected to indigenous ways, and these teachings come from indigenous lineage, so it's a little contrarian to tell this story. However, the principle is what matters. And basically, the story goes that in South America, there was these Spanish conquistadors, they're
Mm,
called, came to South America at this certain spot, and when they arrived, the boats were basically out of food. They were almost starving, and they had to go to land. So they sent their scouts, and the scouts went around and they came back and said, there's a strong indigenous population. They outnumber us 10 to 1. And the ship captain knew that they couldn't leave because they were out of food. So if they left, they would starve. But if they go to shore, there's a good chance they would lose the battle. And so he kind of emboldened the troops and said, "We're going to go forth and we're going to fight this battle. And I'm going to burn the lifeboats. I'm going to burn the ships." And
Mm.
so what they did was that when they got to shore, the captain burned all, because you have to take the little boats, the lifeboats from the big ship to get to shore. When they got to shore, the captain burned all the boats. And he said, "We're either going to win this battle or we're all going to die." And because there was so much on the line for them, it was life or death. There's no back door. There's no running back. There's only one option. We have to move forward and win this fight. They won the battle, and you know, even though they were outnumbered 10-1, they won the battle. So, it's kind of like the
Right,
story, the principle is what matters, which is to burn the
right.
ships. When we really fully commit to something in life and say, I'm going to do this thing, I'm deciding it. And there's no, oh yeah, if it doesn't work out, it's like, no, I'm doing it. Whether it's a relationship or a ceremony or a mission or purpose or whatever, deciding I'm going to take this trip, then there's no more doubt. It destroys the doubt.
Right. When
And
do you think that's not wise?
well, it's interesting because I found that, like, in my life, the only time I've been able to make a decision of that level is when it's 100% in alignment with God's truth
Yes.
and the power of my spirit. Like, because I've tried to decide things that I've wanted, but it never is a
Yeah.
full 100% decision. It's only
It's
when it's like, you know,
and
that
it's
is,
a lot of work too, right? To make it work. To,
right?
like, go for it and manifest with ego and just be bullish. It's like,
Mhm,
"Rawr," and go for it. But, yeah, it's hard sometimes, to admit. Bravery can sometimes be, this is an uphill battle, and sure, I can make it work, but it's exhausting me, and my energy is draining and being leaked. Like, there are signs, right? Warning signs when we are kind of going against the grain with that sort of stuff. It
mhm,
does take real courage and bravery, courage to identify what the resistance is, and bravery to switch course if we need to, I guess, too.
mhm.
And that sunk cost investment. What is that term? Where we've invested in something so much so that we just think it's a shame to pull the investment out because
Mhm.
it's been that way.
Right.
That requires a lot of bravery as well. I think that seems to be one of the necessary lessons before being proactive next time is we have to clean up our karma and admit when we're wrong, kind of. And then we learn that
Mhm.
the cost of being sure-footed and creating a solid foundation going into something is greater than kind of wishful thinking. What is it?
Mm.
The road to hell is paved by good intentions.
Right. Yeah.
And it becomes easier to do the right thing eventually
Mm.
and to stay in alignment because we get that memo. But oh life, we get to come here, and those little moments of death where we realize, it's just a cycle within the grander cycle of my life, and we learn it in so many different directions. We learn to surrender, we learn to not push. And then there are those times when we do have to keep knocking on a door to and that is the brave thing. We know that it's about trying repeatedly, um, because we can't. We're not meant to stop knocking on that door.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes it's the 108th knock that it finally
Like,
opens,
yeah, there you go.
It's and that's the teaching of that my elder shares too, which I really love, which is about asking permission versus forgiveness.
Mm,
And how, like, in a lot of religious structures, especially in the Christian and Catholic churches,
mm,
there's a lot of emphasis on asking forgiveness, saying, "Oh, forgive me, I've sinned." And there's
Mm.
value in that when we've truly authentically strayed from the path or made a mistake to ask forgiveness of ourself, of God, of another. That said, this teaching is to ask permission and to say, okay, God, I want to, like, this is my desire. I
Yeah.
want to do this thing. And I ask for your guidance, and to ask for authentic guidance and wait for the answer. It might take minutes, hours, days, or even weeks or months to receive the clear guidance. And when the permission is there, then we take action,
Yes.
and then we follow through to it to the bitter end. And that's like the path of the warrior too. Bravery is this warrior energy too, where then it's like
Mm.
we knock 1,000 times if we need to, and we come at it in the best way we can, and we trust that if we're coming at it in not the best way, that God will guide us in the proper way to go about it, which is part of manifestation too, right? Like
Yeah.
you do your best in what you think you need to do, and then if you are true to the manifestation, it'll work out how it's supposed to. It'll just take time.
Yeah, it's interesting with attachment and non-attachment. And, you know, I've learned for myself personally to go with the flow. And the way that looks to me is I'll have a vision and I'll ask myself, what would the most immediate step I need to do be in order to go in that direction that feels good to me at this time? And so I'll see what that step needs to be. Part of the bravery I find is taking that step knowing, because I know myself very well, that if I take that step, everything might change. I might think I'm going towards this one thing, but I take just that one step and I'm so grateful for that step. And it opens up all these new portals and possibilities and potentials. And I have to take stock again. So I myself, I don't sort of adhere to a particular outcome or be so driven that way. I have learned to sort of blend the new information, the new awareness, the new feeling, the new sensation of what I've now come into. And the bravery is to be present in that now and to say, does the first thing still apply? Oftentimes, if we're attached to an outcome, and we're manifesting, by the time we get there, it falls short because we've already grown beyond. And now the thing that would challenge us or inspire us is even over the horizon further. So if we get too centered on a particular outcome, we're the one that loses out because growth wasn't built into that. So I think bravery is always, for me, expanding that perspective with each new step, with each present
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
Being there.
the bravery to allow ourselves to be wrong,
Yeah.
like wrong, for lack of a better term, would be like be redirected, or to be humble enough to say, oh, like I thought I knew and I don't know, and now I'm open to a new way.
And that's where
Or
forgiveness comes in, I think, is why that is. I've said a few times, forgiveness is finished business. That means that pattern stops. When we finally get to a place where we see that we've done something or been out of alignment, and we can get to the forgiveness piece, if we really mean it, that means we're conscious of the lesson. And we can
Mhm,
state that, like, I see the error of my ways, I understand, and will you forgive me? And so that's a
mhm,
beautiful, I mean, I think they work hand in hand like courage and bravery and truth and honesty. It's permission and forgiveness. They
mhm,
are a dualistic pair.
mm. Yeah, and like when I feel into the energy of forgiveness too, it's like when I think of forgiveness, I think to like forgive, like to give, to be in a state of constant giving. That's why
Yeah.
they say, like, when you ask God for forgiveness, you're already forgiven. Like, God is always giving love, He's always giving to us no matter what. And really, it's like the parts of us that need forgiveness are the parts of us that have forgotten our connection to truth and our
Mm,
connection to God, and therefore they're no longer in a giving of love.
mm.
They're now serving some other, intention or fear or whatever it might be. And from that separation, we then sin, which really sin, the definition I've learned is that it just means to miss the mark. It's
Yes.
not that you're bad or wrong. You just are like, you missed the mark. You're not in alignment with God. You're not in alignment with love. You've fallen and followed fear. or whatever has happened, and you've simply missed the mark, and you can just take another shot and get back in redirection, get redirected, and
I love this. I
yeah.
love that because when we miss the mark, oftentimes we associate cowardice with
Mhm,
taking those easy ways. That is the opposite of bravery and courage, right? So
mhm,
when we tuck our tail, when we don't speak up, when we don't acknowledge within ourselves or in situations that something isn't on point, yes,
mhm,
that's amazing. So I know, yeah, cowardice becomes less and less fulfilling.
right?
As we mature, bravery takes the wheel because
Mhm,
it is doing the right thing, doing the aligned thing.
mm,
I think our ego thinks that, oh, we'll do it a little bit and it'll be fine. Or you'll be OCD if you are brave every time. If you're overthinking it that much, don't think so hard. Don't like there's so many little slimy things we say to stop ourselves from being full on.
mhm,
It's amazing the little choices we have every day, all day long to, even a word choice. There's a really good word we could use or an okay word, and then we don't clarify and we can see a misunderstanding could happen. There's so many minute chances to be brave in
mm.
in the day or
Yeah,
doing
I
the right
love
thing. Go
I
ahead,
love how
yes.
you tied that into integrity and really like doing what's truthful and proper in our life, being in line. Like that bravery is it does take bravery to be in integrity and to have the hard conversations, especially in relationships. To
Mhm.
be brave enough to tell the truth, to be honest, to
Yeah.
speak what's alive, even when it's uncomfortable, or we know that it's what someone doesn't want to hear, but we have to be truthful in it, or the integrity of having the hard conversations. It's like so many people just ghost out in our modern world, especially in the relationship world,
Mm.
because it's scary to speak to someone in a really truthful, raw, vulnerable way. However, to just ghost out or try to control someone in that way is unhealthy. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem, and it's a cowardice thing to do rather than just saying
It's
what's
so
alive.
interesting. There's love in everything. And I've, even in my line of work, I've come to see how much of a gift it is as well. First off, when we're connected with somebody that is doing that just to control, boo hiss. But there is some merit in people being accountable for their own actions, and it can be a gift. So if that happens to us, it's never something to hang on to. There's forgiveness that can come in. The brave thing to do if we are treated that way or we experience that, whether the intention is to stonewall or not, because it can be a matter of overwhelm. It can be a compassionate thing that they're also overwhelmed and we're overwhelmed, and we have a big freak out together. And so the brave thing, though, is to take that experience in a first person stance and to really look at what can I do in my own energy so that I'm not giving my power away, so that I'm not making that other person the bad guy, so that I can take a good, hard, honest look at how I've come to be in this situation and, retrace what it is leading up to it on our side of it, what we want to do going forward. And really, even that kind of treatment doesn't hold power over us. We can have compassion and really understand that other people's actions are their own actions. In a perfect world, we would be communicating and it would be, safe and trustworthy to live and let live. We're getting
Mhm.
there. But yeah, it
Yeah.
is important not to get too hung up on having things done to us or putting ourselves in situations with mismatch connections where those kinds of gross dynamics are still playing out. That there's something to be said for that as a learning curve. Wherever
Mhm.
people are at, we're going to magnetize people who are the opposite or the flip of what we need to learn for that like energy attracts like energy thing.
Mhm.
but not all of it is high functioning. Compassion, bravery to forgive, bravery to communicate, bravery to accept. Yeah, sorry. I was on a
Wow.
roll. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, yeah, thank you for that. And what comes to mind in that is like to always make medicine out of what's happening in our life. Like sometimes we're magnetizing it, sometimes we're co-creating it, sometimes things do just kind of happen in life and it doesn't really have to do with us. It has to do more with the other and it can be hurtful. However, we can always make medicine out of it, meaning
Yeah.
if someone throws negativity at you or does something that's kind of toxic or poisonous, we can be alchemists and we can take that poison and actually make it into the antidote. So, for example, like in the conversation of ghosting, I remember when I first started sharing these teachings with people, there was a number of times because I teach these teachings as a deep container of ceremony, and I do it in groups and one-on-one. I'm actually starting a group soon in December, and we go really deep into the teachings because these teachings, like we're talking about it, but it's really experiential. Like you can't learn bravery in a book or a podcast. It
Mhm.
can inspire you, but bravery is learned when you go do the thing. So all that said, when I first started teaching this, I had quite a number of times where I would be working with someone and they would ghost. Like they would just disappear. They'd stop answering my messages. They'd completely disappear. We're like in a 7-month journey together and they just completely disappear. They don't say, hey, this is too much or hey, I don't want to do this. They just would ghost, and sometimes stop paying the money for the coaching. And I was left like feeling really distraught. Like it really got to me. And in in that I had to make medicine out of it and I had to realize where the areas where I was putting my need for validation on this experience or in being able to show up and get a certain result and that if someone was ghosting me it would make like it would touch on places within me where I still had to build my sense of self-esteem and self-worth and confidence and where I was like falling into that pattern of seeking external validation and various other dynamics. So then it's like instead of like, oh, poor me, why is this happening? It's like, oh, thank you. Like, thank you for helping me build my integrity. Because if my validation is dependent on someone I'm working with, like that's going to be a leaky energy in my ability to have the full integrity that my soul wants me to have. So, then it's like, thank you. And that's a good teaching too of bravery, where it's like sometimes we think we're so perfectionists, and imposter syndrome is like, oh, I need to be perfect before I start showing up in my purpose or my passion or starting the thing. And bravery is like, start it messy, start it like be in integrity, follow God's truth in it. That said, like, if you're told to do something, like I'm sure when you started this channel, you fine tuned it over the last however many years you've been doing it. It's like when we,
It's
when it,
definitely evolved.
yeah. So it's like when we start, it's messy, it's confusing, we don't know how to do it, and we also are growing in our own self. And bravery is not being perfect. It's like doing the thing even if you make a fool of yourself or doing the thing even if you fall flat on your face. But you did it, and then you're not as afraid of falling on your face, and you learn something, and then you get better and better. So, yeah, making medicine out of these things, right? No matter what happens in our life. And that sometimes it is sometimes the best thing is to ghost as well. Like if it's like it's kind of like a restraining order. Like sometimes there's certain people who are very toxic and it's not worth your time or energy to try to have a truthful, honest conversation with them because they're spinning in their own insanity. And sometimes the brave thing to do is just be like, I'm not tolerating this in my life. This
Yeah.
person is extremely toxic and blocked. And it's not a good feeling to do that. And always we try to not do that in life because it's not fair. However, sometimes we need to. Sometimes that's
Yeah.
the most brave thing to do is to not feed some person or energy that's just trying to suck you, and just so there's no universal truths in these things. It's a
No, and yeah, we have to consider it in that presence, and there's so much to be said for having that strong connection to source so that we can instantaneously ask, show me understanding in this, and then we get the discernment of what scenario we're actually experiencing. You know, we could go into the um, dynamics of blocking all day, I'm sure. And I know sometimes I have been the recipient of being blocked, and I would say I deserved it, but I didn't know. It taught me so much because it was an immediate timeout.
Hmm.
So immediate, it made me go, "What?" And I saw through a pattern that was a total blind spot for me. Did I want to be in that holding pattern? Absolutely not. Was it trauma? Likely. Was it, the only way to handle it being blocked? No. Did it get the point across effectively? Yes. Was it easy for me? No. Will I ever forget it? No. You know, sometimes it's just no, um, no contest. And in that case, it's like a chopping block. And to me, being blocked with bravery, because I was blocked, and I'm sure that the person that blocked me needed bravery to do that and courage and to be able to surrender in that moment to if that was going to devastate our connection or not. And it didn't because the love is there. It was
Hmm.
so transformative, actually. And that was one of, I mean, talk about blocking with bravery. In that instance, it was exactly the right call. So it's kind of interesting. And I think the interpretation was available to me because the love was in it. And so I was able to discern that. But yeah, and that's the importance of having the connection to source is because things can look vastly different on paper than the truth and vice versa, right? So that's huge. I'm curious, we didn't talk about this, but when we began these podcasts, we said that we would take some questions from the viewership. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if you'd be open to having somebody
Yeah.
um, suggest a question. Is anybody out there um, got the creative juices flowing in regard to your own personal experiences or journey? Would you like to use us as a sounding board or bring up any kind of a topic that you feel maybe we haven't touched on deeply enough? Let's give a minute to see.
Mhm.
How are you doing for time today, Robbie?
Let's see. Um, One sec.
I know we didn't talk about
Yeah, I could do another ten
okay,
minutes.
we'll see if we can get some.
Good question. Yeah, and while we're waiting, bravery as well is one of the teachings of bravery is similar to the burn the ships is this mentality, the power of commitment and the power of not letting fear hold us back. So one of the ways that I've learned from is from the Lakota way. And in the Lakota way, they have a term that says hoka, which you guys might know that term because there's a brand called Hoka shoes, but that's completely different. Hoka is a Lakota word that means it's a good day to die, is a rough
Oh yeah.
translation. And that's a warrior call that only the men would use because it was for the warriors going into battle or going into very dangerous situations, and they would run in saying hoka, it's a good day to die. This mentality of being, if today I die, then it's a good day. Like I'm not going to let the fear of death hold me back. And the Lakota were some of the most fierce, powerful warriors, especially as the Europeans were coming and they had such better technology. The Lakota were some of the only tribes that were able to fight off the Europeans for quite a long time.
Mm,
So the that mentality, it's very powerful to say like not even death will hold me back from giving my all. So it's this very kind of athletic warrior mentality that is bravery. I see some questions.
yeah. Okay. You want to take that? I think it's saying as a man. So I'll let you read that one. Or would you like me to read it because I've got it up
Sure.
here?
Yeah.
Okay, as a man, did you take time to learn how to deal with your emotions, or did that always come naturally to you? How did you get to that place?
Well, it certainly didn't always come naturally to me. And yeah, how did I learn to deal with my emotions? It really came through, first of all, like not dealing with them, and then them becoming more and more of a problem. That then, like any problem that will kind of build up, then it becomes, you kind of lose your choice. You just like, wow, this this has become a mountain that I have to now climb because it's built up so much. So by suppressing and ignoring and not facing my emotions, they became more and more out of balance. And that's when I was forced to then face them because they started to express as chronic anxiety and fear and disassociation from myself and created a lot of separation within my being that allowed a lot of shadow aspects to run the show because I wasn't integrated. And that would show up in dysfunctional relationships. It would show up in not being able to be a fully embodied man. And it showed up in ways where I was not living my purpose or things would always fall apart in my life. And there was chaos, constant chaos. And as within, so without. So because I had a chaotic inner world, the outer world mirrored that and the outer world mirrors it. So eventually we get the wisdom to look within and say, whoa, maybe there's something going on in here that's making this mess out here. So eventually I had to do that. And I learned to deal with them by really being in nature. That was the biggest breakthrough for me was like, because in nature we're connected but also disconnected. We're disconnected from the world, from the doing, from the phone. And I would sit in nature and learn how to be with myself. I also learned practices of qigong, meditation, deep presence, and learning to bring my gaze and attention inward and to start to feel what was alive within me. So sometimes it would be a sensation or a fear or a feeling, an emotion, and I would learn how to be with that with single pointed focus and presence. And when we do that, it starts to move the energy.
Where did you get the concept that you could do that? How did that find you?
It felt like an intuitive thing, like it felt guided by my higher self because it's a principle of just how reality works as a human. Like it works for every human. I mean, we all have our own ways of processing emotions. That said, it's really, in essence, about bringing our awareness to it, our presence to it, and then giving space for it. So sometimes, like for me, qigong was very helpful because, and for other people, it's dance or yoga. But we got to move the body because the emotions in the body are not separate. Like they are in a way, like they're not the same energy necessarily, but they're also not. They're together. Same with the mind. So when you have that knot in your stomach, it's a physical thing. It's also emotional. It's also mental. And if you just sit there and talk about it, it only gets you so far. If you meditate on it, it'll work a little bit. But sometimes we just got to move the energy. So I found that qigong was very somatic. Really got the energy and the body moving, and it also brought my awareness to those places. And it was an intuitive thing that just made sense to me, I suppose.
How
And
long did that take from when you first started thinking that way till like now? How long ago was that? The person we see sitting here versus just
mhm,
learning that.
yeah, I would say that like the journey with my emotions, like really learning to face them, began when I was a teenager and my father was very unwell. And I was having to face the grief and emotions of that. However, for me to really, when I really began coming into right relation with my emotions and started practicing and apprenticing in Qigong and meditation, that was about 5 or 6 years ago, like 5 to 6 years ago. And that's when that journey really began on a consistent basis. And there was a direct relationship between having the bravery to face my inner world and the inner demons and the shadows, as well as surrender, right? So it was like in going into it, there's always resistance. So if an emotion is stuck inside of you, there's always resistance, which is a form of control. There's always some sort
Mm,
of control there. Because if there wasn't, the emotion wouldn't be stuck. And
mm,
so, in order to move that emotion, there has to be surrender. You have to surrender your resistance and trying to control that inner self or that
mm.
emotion, that feeling, and then it can move. And then it moves as tears or anger or laughter or however it wants to move. And it might take a day or two, might take a week,
Mm.
might take months, or it might take a minute. Sometimes it's like quick.
I
So,
channeled one time, and I've never forgotten it, that we can transmute anything in 3 days. The
mm,
saints, the resurrection archetype, 3 days. If you with all of your heart, mind, and soul want to transmute some kind of thing, 3 days.
mm,
Hold out 3 days and lean into it. It will be completely transformed. We can
mm,
die to self and be born in a new way, 180, full circle, whatever we want to call it, just 3 days. And it's such a
mm,
beautiful thing to know. It doesn't This too shall pass.
mhm.
But we have to lean right in to get that. But I thought it was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well. Often I say 4 days because I found often the 4th day is the, like, celebration day or integration day.
Nice, yeah. For the rest of your life.
Yeah,
No.
right?
Uh,
And one belief that I really want to invite the audience and whoever's watching this to accept into your heart, it's a very helpful, expansive beliefs. So some beliefs are limiting, some beliefs are expanding. And the expansive belief is that whenever I surrender, my life gets better. Whenever I surrender, my life gets better.
yeah.
And so for me recently, I had to surrender and let go of my past home. And it felt in the moment like, I don't want to let this go. Like, it's a beautiful home, it's great. And I was attached to it. And I felt like I didn't want to leave. And it was perfect in so many ways, and then everything just kept pointing me towards leaving, and it became harder and harder to live there, and then I finally surrendered, and then now I'm in this new home and this new life, and my life has gotten better
Mm,
significantly. And really, I've found that when we authentically surrender from a place of truth
mhm.
and we let go of in our life, like, you can only let go of what doesn't serve you. If
Right,
it still serves you, you can't get rid of it. It's like it's gonna keep coming back because 'cause you're supposed to learn the lesson and you're supposed to
right.
have it in your life. So it's like we can only surrender and let go of what is up for clearing and up for release.
Yeah,
And therefore, if it's up for clearing and up for release, even if we think we still want it or we need it, then always something good will come. Something better will come.
right.
'Cause we're listening to truth. It might happen right away, it might take a little bit, it really depends. That said, it will always life get and we're on that upward trajectory in life.
I think I would add to that that something I've been seeing lately is that when I surrender, the things meant for me step closer.
Mm,
And it can be in such what others might think were abstract ways, but holistic ways. Not necessarily, coming straight on clear as day, but other things,
mm,
glimmers and twinkles and opportunities. And a lot of times when we're in fear, we want the proof that something is the right choice, or that a person loves us, or da da da. But as soon as we let go, we see the evidence naturally arise one way or the other, and we don't have to guess anymore because we're
mhm,
not afraid something isn't there or sure that it is. When we let go of those control issues, and like you said, it may not be today, it may be down the road, but when we let go, we can see what's actually there. And then if something is coming towards us that we're unsure if it's for us or not, it will arrive and we will
mhm,
see it. And then we won't have any doubt because we didn't affect it, it just occurred.
Mm.
Then we can take great heart in it because we didn't make it happen.
Yeah. And what I love about that too is the reminder that like so often in life we're like, oh yeah, I'll let this go, but first I want to know that like the next thing will come. Like I'll
Oh
quit my
yeah,
job, but I want to know what my next job is, or like,
yeah,
I'll leave the house that I'm living in, but I need a new place to move into first. Like that part of the self that wants the security, but and sometimes that's wise. Sometimes there's wisdom in
yes,
that. Like, don't throw caution to the wind in every case. However, sometimes the universe asks us to take a leap of faith and to trust we'll be caught. And I thought of that as you were sharing, where it's like the things that are for us start to show up once we create that space in our life.
hmm yeah,
It's like if you want, you know, if you're in a relationship that doesn't serve you and you want your perfect relationship, like that perfect relationship probably isn't going to come till you let go of the one that doesn't serve you. And then
exactly.
there's going to be a delay. And then eventually
And
the
it's not
meaning.
even just the letting go of the thing. It's the person that you become by no longer settling for a certain level of existence when you love yourself enough to believe that it's not worth settling, nothing's worth settling for,
Mm.
and the internal process that occurs when you give yourself permission to be truthful, honest, courageous, and brave, right? And just allowing all of that. What is next week's energy?
Well, funny enough, so these teachings are very magical, and often, like when I do this ceremony with people, it's a 7-month journey, and often as we come to the end of 1 month, they'll already start opening to the next month, but they won't even know that that's what's happening. And me as the person guiding it, I'll be like, oh wow, this person's in truth, but they're already starting on honesty, and they haven't actually started it yet. So there's this natural intelligence, and you were just doing that, talking about having the self-worth and the
Uh,
self-respect to say, I'm not going to put up with this situation that no longer serves me. And
uh,
that's the next teaching, which is respect,
amazing.
teaching of respect. So yeah, it's perfect.
I think that's a wonderful place to leave today's podcast on. And yeah, do you have anything further to add for today?
No, that feels complete. I'm really grateful to be able to share with everyone. And yeah, I would love to stay connected with people outside of this platform. So check out my YouTube channel. I have some
Absolutely.
other things I post on there. I have a podcast I'm doing with my friend Kirby. I also have myself on Facebook, Instagram, and Kirby and I have a men's group that we've created online that's open. And then, like I said, I'm also starting a co-ed group for these 7 teachings in this month of December. So if you're interested in learning more or
Amazing.
having a call about that, I'm available and would love to connect. So you can send me a message on Instagram is probably the best place. And yeah, I can see you there. So
Yeah. All those links are going to be in the description box below this video. And I am excited to say that I've got a couple of locations for the retreat that I've started whispering about out there on YouTube, which I believe is going to be in early mid March. And I'm just trying to decide on locations for that. I'm so excited about it as well. And it's going to be an alignment course, boot camp style for a 4-day intensive. So stay tuned for that and start those creative juices flowing for whether that resonates for you. And okay, much love, everybody. And thanks again, Robbie. See you next week.
amazing. Have a beautiful week, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye.